Hi everybody. It's a rainy day outside, and we are in the middle of a pandemic. So I thought I'd do a little video just because my friend Ranjini emailed me and asked me to do something where I talk about my daily routine. And it kind of feels a bit narcissistic to me to talk about that, and I don't normally talk about it. Although once or twice people have asked me, but people that I know ask me about this a lot, and I guess it's become more relevant because my lifestyle is a little bit minimalist, just by nature. I think it's because I'm Scottish or something, but I don't know. It's just the way that I live, and so a few times people have asked me. I thought I would actually do a video saying something about it because maybe it will help people. And I guess the thing is that part of it is that I practice a technique which for years I would use as a cognitive behavioural therapist with clients who have clinical depression. And then I started doing it myself because I thought it was beneficial. And this technique, which we call activity scheduling, is bound up. There's a lot of research on it, and it's kind of ties in with some things that the Stoics advocate, that several Stoics advocate. So there's an interesting little story there, and it really hit me when I was thinking about this. I thought, I don't know if, like, I'm not really drawn to the idea of telling people about my daily routine, but I'd like to talk to people about activity scheduling because I feel that during the pandemic, people are struggling psychologically to cope with the situation, and I really believe that this technique helps a lot. It helps me. Helps clients, particularly those that suffer from depression. We know it's helpful. If you're interested in Stoicism, it complements that. So maybe worth talking a little bit about how it works. So way back in 1979, Aaron T. Beck, the founder of cognitive therapy, published the first major clinical textbook on the treatment of clinical depression, and it contains a technique which actually he borrowed from behaviour therapy from Peter Lewinson, and he doesn't even mention his name anywhere in the book. But there's a technique called activity scheduling that's really a behavioural technique more than a cognitive technique, and it really, there are a couple of key things to it. It really just involves planning your day, or planning all of your time day by day, and I think what's key to it is that you break down your day into 1 hour slots. Or further, I mean, sometimes I've broken it down. When I'm kind of working quite intensively, I actually found that it helped to break it down into half-hour segments. So I have a form that I fill out usually every day, or certainly through periods where I'm kind of working like this, like at the moment I'm doing it. And I just have a sheet on my computer, and it's like 2 columns. It could just be 1 column, and it's broken down into rows, like an hour at a time. And the first thing in the morning, I'll plan my day ahead, and I'll put down roughly in a few words what I'm hoping to achieve in each of those 1 hour slots. And so it takes a little bit of time to do that. First slot is planning the day ahead, and usually like looking at emails and prioritizing emails because there's usually too many to respond to. And so and then at the end of the day, in the other column, sometimes I might put down what I actually did, if that's, doesn't really square with what I was planning to do. And then at the end of the day, I'll review it. And I think that's an important part of it. Now, there are the Stoics quote this philosophical poem called The Golden Verses of Pythagoras. Epictetus quotes it. Seneca quotes it. Marcus Aurelius talks about Pythagoreanism but doesn't quote that poem. And Galen, Marcus Aurelius' physician, in a book where he talks about Stoic therapy, also quotes the Golden Verses of Pythagoras. And we know that Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, wrote a book on Pythagoreanism, which is completely lost. So there seems to be this long tradition of the Stoics being interested in Pythagoreanism, this older philosophy, and being influenced by it. And it may be, I don't know whether this was just during the Roman imperial period, or maybe even all the way back to Zeno, this practice that's in the Golden Verses may have been part of Stoicism, but certainly it's not just one of them. Epictetus and Seneca both mention this. And then Galen, in a more roundabout way, seems to kind of link this to Stoicism, or he brings it into his discussion of Stoic therapy anyway. When he's talking about a book by Chrysippus called On Therapeutics. So the Golden Verses says that every morning you should prepare for the day ahead, and then in the evening it famously says you shouldn't allow sleep to close your eyes until you've reviewed 3 times the events of the day, and you should ask yourself 3 questions, which I would paraphrase or modify a little bit. And Seneca has a slightly different version of this. But I would say the questions basically boil down to: what did you do well? What did you do badly? And what could you do next time that's different or new? And so, like, first of all, starting off by praising yourself. And that's surprisingly important. Like, I found just through practicing doing this, that I tend to, and other people tend to, kind of sometimes not notice what they're doing or not notice what they've achieved. I mean, literally, I'll get to the end of the day sometimes and I've forgotten that maybe I did an interview, or I spent a couple hours writing something earlier in the day, and maybe I get to the end of the day and I feel a bit kind of dissatisfied, until I kind of look at my schedule and I think, oh yeah, like I forgot in the morning I did a whole bunch of stuff, like that just sort of slipped my mind. Maybe I'm getting old, but it helps me to look at the schedule and go, oh right, I actually achieved more than I realised. And also to kind of learn from the things you did well. How could you do more of that? How could you kind of squeeze more goodness out of it? What did you do badly? Not just so that you can punish yourself or feel guilty. And Seneca actually addresses this. He says, that you should do this in a kind of friendly way, not in a kind of punitive way. And on anger, he discusses this. So what you do badly, obviously, you should ask yourself, well, why did that go wrong? What could I do differently? And then also, what did I miss? I think the Golden Verses says, what did I omit? What could I do differently, I would say, or what could I do that's new? What's missing from this? Like, that I could actually just add that maybe hasn't been touched on at all. And I guess to cut a really long story short, when Beck talked about this initially, he said the depressed person should kind of schedule activities that give them pleasure, or give them a sense of achievement. And philosophically, that is a very superficial way of doing it, right? And modern behavioural therapists are very interested in a modified version of this that uses a more nuanced concept of personal value. So the idea isn't just doing stuff that's pleasurable. And Stoics are going to love this because they go, oh, it's not hedonism then. Like, we abandoned the idea of having a hedonistic activity schedule. But it's more like acting in accord with virtue, right? It's because external goals aren't directly under your control. And so this is integral to modern therapy, right? Because it's the truth, it's reality, it's psychologically valid. So the idea is that rather than going, I want to make $1 million, or, I want to achieve this or that you might not be able to achieve. The goals are defined more in terms of qualities that you'd like to exhibit. So I'd like to spend an hour being a good parent, like playing with my kids or whatever, doing something, or doing my best, so I can feel at least that I've made an effort. I'd like to spend an hour on doing philosophy, on the love of wisdom, so it might be kind of like trying to write or read or make notes or listen to an audiobook or do a meditation, so I feel that I've spent at least some time. And so it's the virtue that you're exercising that's really the main thing, because then even the intention to do it is rewarding. Like, regardless, I mean, you try to write poetry and maybe you don't really produce something very good, but you bin it and you think, but nevertheless I still spent an hour trying to be creative, and that effort is something that I value. That's the kind of person that I want to be. I want to be able to look at my activity schedule and think, yeah, like this is like cool. I'd like to be that person that did that stuff, whether or not they succeeded at everything, that's at least how they were investing their time. So I think this is very pertinent in the time of pandemic, when people are having to figure out new schedules, and maybe they're stuck at home and they're maybe not using that time fruitfully. And like, in terms of stuff that I do, I'm a writer and a trainer. Like, that's mainly what I spend my time doing. So I run courses and I write books. I'm writing a graphic novel at the moment, so I'm the scriptwriter and I work with an illustrator. And so what I actually do is work on my laptop all day. So, that hasn't affected my daily routine that much. But in each day, what I also do is I try to spend some time learning a language. So I'll do things like watch videos or do Duolingo. And now that I'm stuck here, I've also kind of reached out to find a tutor that I can do Skype with, to learn a language. And so that's something that I kind of feel, I look back and I did a bit of my language, that's so I feel that I've done something constructive. I try to spend the time each day reading. I usually like Kindle now because I travel a lot, so I don't like to have I used to have a huge library of books and I gave them all away, because I got sick transporting them between continents. And maybe do videos, podcasts. I just did the Voice of Islam, a radio station earlier. It's the second time that I've done that. But anyone can just reach out and do podcasts and interviews and put stuff online. I'll review the graphics for the graphic novel and stuff. I listen to audio books. I use Audacity. So I love audiobooks because I love reading books, but you can't always do it. Like you can listen to an audiobook while you're out walking, right? Or doing ironing or driving a car or whatever. So I like the thing about audiobooks I like is that you can just listen to it while you're doing other stuff. So I get frustrated, or used to, if I have to, go somewhere and I thought, it's half an hour there and half an hour, that's an hour of my time, when I could be doing something. But if I'm listening to an audiobook, then I think, no, I did a whole chapter on an audiobook, so I wasn't just kind of staring out the window in a train or something, I was gaining something from it. And meditation, I like to practice meditation. I've made a lot of audio recordings over the years, so I find the easiest thing is just to listen to those guided meditation. We have a whole bunch of them for Stoicism, by the way, that people really love. It's part of Stoic Week and Stoic Mindfulness and Resilience training, which I'm hoping to run again soon. People keep asking me about that. I get emails all the time about, when is SMRT going to run again? We're going to do it again soon. So we have this big course that we use for research purposes and teaching Stoic skills, that we created for the non-profit, and 8,000 people have done it or something. A lot of people have done it over the years. So we haven't run it last year. We normally do it every year. We're going to do it again soon. That's sidebar. Weird Stoic things that I do that I guess I should mention are that I just do, because over the years I feel like I've figured out what's part of my routine or my character. I have cold showers every morning, mainly just because I feel it wakes me up. I don't need to drink as much coffee then, but apparently they're good for you. And I do alternate day fasting. So today I'm fasting, and I'll normally eat fast. And when I'm fasting, I don't eat anything. I just drink black coffee, which is probably bad, but that's what I drink. And I'll drink water with a couple of drops of cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar in it, just to give it flavour. And that's it. And then I won't eat fast for 24 hours, and I don't even notice that I'm doing it. And this is probably also bad, but I find that I get more work done when I'm not eating. So I think, I don't have to go to the shops and don't have to cook food and stuff. I can just work all day or do more constructive things. So I notice that I save a lot of time when I'm fasting. And I think it's just maybe my constitution that I don't feel that I have to eat every day. And, it seems to work out for me. I'm much healthier since I started doing that a year or two ago. So those are some of the things that I do as part of my routine every day, but really the main thing is that you plan out your day so that you can look back on it and feel a kind of sense of almost pride or satisfaction that you think that you were being the sort of person that you would like to be. And and then at a kind of tactical level, that's a strategy, that's the grand strategy, I think, which fits into Stoicism, to live in accord with virtue. One way of understanding Stoicism is that, the Stoics following Socrates think that we can, to some extent, look at other people and identify what we admire, what's praiseworthy, what's virtuous in them. But then we have a double standard. Socrates returns to this over and over again, that people are able to identify virtues in other people, but then they don't actually live in accord with them themselves. So very simply, we should actually try and be more like the sort of people that we would genuinely praise or admire. There's more to philosophy than that, but that's good, like the golden rule or something almost like, as good as a very simple little guide. So you should be able to look at your activity schedule and think, that's the kind of guy that I'd like to be. And then, not look at it and think, geez, is that what I spent my time doing? I mean, other little tips that I'd give about it. Oh, this is an important one, actually. Right, one of the most common mistakes that people make, especially people with clinical depression or its anxiety disorder cousin, GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder, which is kind of, I think of as being very closely related to depression. People that set themselves up by failure, we know, because they have a cognitive bias. People who are generally anxious or generally depressed, that causes them to set unrealistic goals and then fail and then feel depressed about it or feel anxious about it. And so one of the things that comes from being persistent in activity scheduling is that you look at your day. I always found that I was getting nowhere near as much done as I thought I would, and that things like responding to emails took me far longer than I assumed that it took. And so I learned either to be more accepting of that or to find ways to cut it short by ignoring some emails or prioritizing them. And so sometimes people send me an email that's 2 pages long. You might get an email back from me that says, can you send me a shorter version of that? Because I'm like, am I going to spend like half an hour reading through this whole thing and responding to it piece by piece? So, depending on what it's about. So I find it useful to kind of look at the schedule. You can learn a lot by actually just inspecting how long things take. And one of the simplest and best piece of advice that I can give you is that small changes often have a big difference, right? So don't set yourself up for failure by thinking, I'm going to change my whole routine and be super disciplined about it. You hear people say that all the time, and most of the time they're just setting themselves up for failure. That's how depressed people talk. I'm going to be so self-disciplined from now on. They say that all the time, right? And then they fail, and then they feel depressed about it. All you have to do, it's about thinking smart, right? All you have to do is tweak here and there, especially at first, right? So one of the best tips I ever came across actually comes from Derren Brown's book. And it's this idea that often if he talks about how his friend didn't like flossing, like nobody likes flossing. I've met some people that say they do. And his buddy would say, well, I'm just going to floss one tooth. And then if I feel like it, I'll carry on and do the rest. And the basic wisdom there is that usually people find it's easier to talk themselves into just doing one little thing, but then often they'll just carry on and do the rest of the thing. Whereas if they say, I'm going to floss all my teeth, I'm like, I don't know if I can bother doing that right now. But I'll just do one. I can't really talk myself out of just doing one tooth. I might as well do the rest now. So there are little mind tricks that you can play on yourself to get yourself to do healthy stuff. Exercise, I think, is like that. And days where I really don't feel like exercising, I think, you know what, I'm just going to do one thing. And then once I've done it, I'm like, might as well do the other thing as well. For exercise, I travel a lot, so I tend to jump rope. Although I'm having some issues with that at the moment. My doctor told me to stop doing it, but I'm trying to figure out a substitute. But I'll do at the moment, what I'm trying to do at the moment is get more into doing sit-ups. And isometric exercises like the plank or wall sitting, where you don't need any space really to do them. I find I can do in hotel rooms or Airbnbs and stuff when I'm traveling. So yeah, anyway, you figure out a routine that fits in with your daily life, I think. I think as time goes on, my life has become simpler. Pared things down. I spend less money on stuff. I eat simpler food. I usually, when I travel, I have enough clothes for 7 days. People are surprised that I go away for 6 months and I have one small suitcase. and that's all I take with me. I have my laptop and clothes for 7 days, and that's pretty much it. Like toiletries, I guess. That's about it, really. And all my books are on my Kindle and audiobooks and whatnot. So yeah, like we use this in SMRT and Stoic Week as well. This idea of the golden versus a Pythagoras, and kind of tying it in with this modern evidence-based approach to activity scheduling. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are about how Stoicism can help us figure out our daily routine in the time of pandemic. And what your thoughts are about activity scheduling, and also if you've got any questions about any of the stuff that I've just mentioned. People maybe ask me about cold showers or some random thing. That's fine, but mainly if you have any questions about the process of activity scheduling, I'm happy to talk about that and give people advice on it, because I think it will help you get through this. At least some of you, and so I thought it was worth talking about. So thanks very much for giving me your time and attention, and I hope that you're safe and well, fate permitting. Bye.